beefed up stand your ground and make money doing it law. And so what this would do is that if a defendant seeks to have a case dismissed by claiming self-defense immunity under the stand your ground law, the prosecution would first have to establish beyond a reasonable doubt at a pre-trial immunity hearing that the defendant does not qualify for the defense. So that flips 180. Who actually has to prove what? Now, it's not that you have to show, oh no, I know that I killed a person, but I needed to, it was self-defense. Now they need to prove that you were not acting in self-defense. And we know in these sorts of situations, there's very often very little information to go on. And so think about all the cases that would have gone differently if this new expanded version had existed. But that's not all. In addition, if a judge grants a motion to dismiss at that point, defendants may be due up to $200,000 from the state attorney to cover defendants' attorney fees, court costs, and other expenses. So you don't even necessarily have to go to trial, and you can get paid fabulously as a result.
Okay, so let's break this down. First off, if this law had been in place when Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin, and whether you think it's murder or not, he did shoot and kill Trayvon Martin. Not only would he have been acquitted, as he was, but on top of that, the state of Florida would have had to give him $200,000 for shooting Trayvon Martin and killing him. Now remember, Trayvon Martin, 17 years old, had gone to get Skittles, unarmed, okay? And they're like, great job in shooting that young kid. Here's $200,000.
Yeah.
And then this happens in a pretrial immunity hearing, which creates more time pressure, it just makes the job of the prosecutors in the state so much harder.
Yeah.
Now, let's pause for a second to understand that these are conservatives that are pushing this. Now, wait a minute. I thought conservatives were in favor of prosecutors and want to get tough on crime. No, in this case, they're making it incredibly easy to get away with literally murder.
Yes.
Okay? So now, think about it I know conservatives are thinking like, hey, man, I see somebody I don't like and I want to be able to shoot them, whether it's in my house or I got into a fight with them and kill them and then get away with it because, hey, man, I was under threat, right? That's the scenario they envision. But understand this doesn't limit the scenario to just you and your fantasies. It applies to everybody in Florida.
Yeah.
So a mugger comes and shoots someone in your family. Now, the old law, and by the way, the law everywhere else in America, okay, and that's why the Supreme Court in Florida had said 5-2. This is the law everywhere. This is legal jurisprudence as we know it in America, right? Is the old law is the state has to show beyond a reasonable doubt that you did the shooting, that you killed that person, okay? Now, in the past, once they have met that burden, it would then come back on you to say, all right, well, then now think about how hard that is, because I'm going to go back to the mugging analogy, okay? So a mugger shoots someone let's say your dad and your little Bruce Wayne. Okay, that's how he became Batman. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That is actually factually true, yes. It's
Right.
canonical, sorry.
So, no, seriously, a mugger shoots someone. Now, in the past, you had to prove that he had actually shot him, which is hard enough, right? And that he had done, and you have to prove all the different elements of the crime, right? Now you have to turn around, and the mugger says, I felt threatened by the guy. I thought he was going to draw on me. I felt threatened by him.
Yeah.
In the past, you would have been like, yeah, okay, go ahead, prove that the guy had put your life in danger. That's why you shot him in the head and killed him, right?
Yeah.
Now, the state, he says, no. You prove that the guy I was mugging didn't in any way threaten me, and you have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Now, how in the world are you going to do that? Okay, I mean, you apply it in any scenario, drive-by shooting. I thought the guy was threatening me. Prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he wasn't threatening me, right?
A fight in an alley outside of a bar, no witnesses. Stand your ground.
Right? So anytime somebody murders somebody, but it has to be with a gun. And I argued about this when we had our current TV show with one of the top gun advocates in the country. I said, so you're telling me if I'm doing self-defense without a gun, that's not allowed, okay? That doesn't get any protections, right? But if I have a gun, like whoever has the gun is almost by definition thought to be completely innocent, and the state has to have burden on top of burden on top of burden. If you don't have a gun and somebody mows you down, you didn't have any protections.
Should have bought a gun.
Or if you don't have a gun and you punch the guy with the gun in the face, you have less protections.
Well, you've now given him reason to kill you because you're literally threatening him.
Right.
If somebody attacks you with a gun, do not resist.
You can't resist.
Because then they can kill you and get away with it and get paid.
And then, by the way, how do I know whether you resisted or not? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
And you can't, once you're dead, a prosecutor has to come up with a nearly impossible task of proving that that guy killed you
Yeah.
and that you did not in any way resist.
Yeah.
If you resisted someone attacking you, self-defense.
Yeah. And if a guy with a gun says, I felt threatened, how are you going to prove that that's not true? I mean, we watch these guys on TV all the time. People with guns, they seem scared all the time.
Grab their guns, start shooting at each other, because dead men don't talk, okay? And so if the other guy's dead, you're almost certainly going to get away with it.
Yeah, and this is saying that if you shoot someone, you better finish them off, because it's going to make your case a lot easier to prove in court.
And then on top of that, not only are you going to get off, they're going to give you $200,000, up to $200,000 for your defense. Oh my God, this is insanity.
Yeah.
So why is the NRA, who claims that, hey, you know what, we don't want bad guys with a gun, why is the NRA pushing so hard for this? Think about that.
I know.
Well, I thought they didn't want good criminals. I thought they were just for the upstanding citizens, right? But these are people who have been charged with a crime and we're worried murdered someone. But the NRA is their best friend in this case because they want you to use their products. Their products happen to kill people, right? But you use their products and they will have your back no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, if you're watching this video and you own a gun and you can imagine a case in which you'll use self-defense and you think, well, this helps me because this might happen to me, imagine from the point of view of a criminal. Not a responsible gun owner, from a criminal, this objectively makes it easier for them to get away from with murder. Why would you possibly want this? And you're bringing up the NRA. But the only reason that you're bringing up the NRA is because Dennis Baxley, who's sponsoring this legislation, also worked with the NRA's chief lobbyist in Florida on it.
No,
So they got to literally work on the legislation with him.
Let me give you the direct quote from the Gainesville Sun because it's just amazing. State Representative Dennis Baxley, who introduced the original Stand Your Ground bill in 2005, said he works closely with Marion Hammer, the NRA's chief lobbyist in Florida, on legislation. He just flat out says it. He's like, yeah. I mean, NRA represents gun manufacturers. They'd like people who use their weapons to be able to get away with murder. So I work closely with their chief lobbyist to make that happen for them.
Yeah.
Welcome to the influence of money in politics. Hey, everything's great. No, their bribes didn't affect me at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, I think there's one additional thing to this. One, it obviously makes it easier to get away with the sorts of things that these people want to do. They want to be able to use deadly force regardless of whether it's necessary. If somebody threatens them in the slightest bit, they want to be able to kill the person. But it has another effect, a more chilling effect. So 8th Circuit State Attorney Bill Cervone criticized the portion of the bill that would have the state attorney paying up to $200,000 out of the agency's budgets to defendants who have cases dismissed. He said that could put a financial strain on prosecutors and to me amounts to nothing more than trying to put a chilling effect on prosecutors to test the legitimacy of a self-defense claim. Because after you've been docked $200,000, $400,000 because you've lost these sorts of cases in Florida where they want people to get away with these acts, are you going to try to make the claim that it wasn't self-defense and risk losing $200,000 on a regular basis? You're not going to do it. So you're just going to give up trying to prove that it wasn't self-defense. And those people are then going to